Hey YouTube, Aiden/BurgerBob. We're going to take apart this valve and see what's on the inside of it. This is the Bach K valve. Had this in the video yesterday. Tools for this are pretty simple. Screwdriver with a flathead, and then with some valve oil to put it back on it once we get it out. So these are nice. They don't take apart axially like the axials do, so we don't have to take any tuning size out or take the horn apart, much like many other valves in that respect. Let's loosen this guy. There we go. Get it started. Take it out with my hand. As usual, no screws on a brass instrument should be super tight. You don't want to ruin anything. None of this stuff is that hardcore. Carefully pry this off. There we go. The K valve is kind of cool. It has this little shield on the side of this valve to protect the linkage and stuff, I guess, from getting caught. I'm not really sure. It doesn't stick out that far. There's even other valves that stick out pretty far. I'm not sure why that's there, but you can kind of use it as a little lever. Cool. Let's go over to the other side. This is the other side of the same valve. We're looking at the G-flat valve today. So this has two things we can unscrew. We have a little guy right here, and then a lock ring right here. Uh-oh. There we go. I didn't tighten it too much, I swear. So unscrew this. It's kind of cool how it's lit up in the video right now. This is a lock ring, not the valve cap. So this is a lot like a Thayer in that respect. So we take that aside, and then this whole thing will come out if we press the valve from the other side. This is kind of like a rotor valve in this way, that the backing plate is here, except there's no valve cap over the backing plate. This is the valve cap. And this is not in with nearly the same amount of force that a rotor would be. Take this out. There we go. Here's our little plate. Looks like we got a little bit of nasty in here. Really not too bad. And this is a little extra guy we can take off, and you can put oil through here if you want to oil the valves without taking it apart every time. I actually prefer to take the valves apart and just do it right the first time, so that's what I would do. And then the valve comes out like so. And that is the K valve. It looks a lot like a piston valve that you would find in a euphonium or something, and is actually very similar to that. Like I said in the K valve video that I think these are solid brass and stuff. They're not. These are like a piston in that they're like a heavy brass case with formed tubing that they insert into this, and then heavily nickel plated. There's lots of nickel on the outside of this. So really like a piston construction, which is pretty gosh darn heavy. Taking the valve out, it's not super heavy. It's definitely not light though. We have on the top and the bottom, I guess this is on top and bottom, these I think are vent holes. So when you turn the valve, the airflow will see the vent. I'm not really sure though. That might just be the top and bottom of the hollow inside of the valve. Let's see. So this is the open port right here. Let's put that in the white. That's the open side of the valve, and then we turn 60 degrees-ish, and we see the other sides. This is the way the air would go in, and this is the air coming back from the other side. Yes, this is very confusing to look at for some reason. Basically, this is the same as a Hagman, just that the ports are instead in the top of the valve. Here, the side of the valve instead of the top of the valve like they are in a Hagman or a true bore. So in that way, they were really similar. You can see how this straight path here is not, I don't think it's actually quite as open as a Hagman. So you actually trade off a lot of things to have a valve that's kind of worse than a Hagman in most ways. Let's put that very carefully aside. There we go. Now let's take a quick look at the casing here. We got two ports over here, two ports over there. The one closer to us is the straight one through the horn, and the one farther away is the one that goes through the attachment tubing. So you can really see how if you put those ports on this side of the valve, how it would basically just be a Hagman, and very similar in that respect. Really just differs in the construction of the valve and not so much everything else. So let's oil it back up, put it back together. I'm honestly, like, I know a lot of you guys asked to see this. It's really not that interesting. It's just kind of like a giant rotor slash Hagman, and that's it. I don't know. it's not as interesting as I thought it would be either. So oil the casing, get oil everywhere. One slight disadvantage, I guess, of these valves is that there's a lot of surface area. This entire outside of the valve needs to have oil on it, as well as the bearing on this end and the bearing on the other end. Put the valve back in. There we go. It kind of slots in there. And these valves are in pretty gosh darn good shape. There we go. Get the oil everywhere. Oil on this bearing. Oil around the edge. Put the valve cap on. Right here in the casing, there's like a little notch taken out. I think that's for the venting. Let's see. So when you turn the valve, instead of the air being held back by a solid brass the entire time, there's actually a little spot for the air to go. Oops, I just tried to put the locking on backwards. Screw that in. The way the valve cap goes on, I don't think really matters. There's no witness markers or anything to tell you where it should be. This linkage is actually really easy to put back on. That's one reason I like this a lot. There, ta-da. There's no extra noodling around with all this. Put this back in. Get that started. The disassembly of these is actually, I think, even easier than rotors. So I guess that's a big plus if you want to take your valves apart all the time. There we go. And we have a functional, if somewhat slow, G-flat valve. So someone told me this linkage is not original to the K3. It is actually from, this linkage is from a 50B3, the rotor instrument. And then this right here is a Yamaha part. So this is not what originally came with this. This should be on a 50B3, and the 50B3 has much easier valves to actuate. So this spring right here is not adequate for the job of kind of getting this valve returned fast. It's not slow. I can obviously use these just fine, but not quite fast enough. So there we go. There's the inside of a K valve. Really not super interesting, but interesting enough. Basically just a really heavy piston slash rotor with a couple extra ports on the side. See you guys next time.